Imagine working hard all season, caring for your bees, and finally getting the perfect batch of honey. You're proud of it, excited to share it with friends and family, and then bam, someone takes it without asking. Now, add one more twist. The person who swiped it is none other than your HOA Karen. Yep, the same person who always has something to say about how you live your life. So, what do you do when the HOA Karen thinks she can take your honey without even so much as a "hey, is it okay?" You could confront her, or you could let nature take its course. And that's exactly what I did. But I didn't do it in a typical way. Nope, I decided to let my bees handle the situation themselves. Now you're probably wondering, how does that even work? Well, stick around because things are about to get wild. Trust me, this wasn't a situation where you just knock on the door and ask for your honey back. What happened next was a little sweeter than expected. But first, let me take you through the moment that set this whole situation in motion. It all started a few weeks ago, when the bees were finally producing the kind of honey that makes you think, yep, this is why I do this. After months of watching the hives, keeping the queen healthy, and making sure everything was just right, I harvested the golden goodness, carefully collecting jar after jar. I was looking forward to enjoying the fruits of my labor and maybe gifting some to friends who appreciated a good, local, raw honey. But then came Karen. I had seen her around the neighborhood, the one who always has a complaint about something. You know the type, always walking her dog while giving a side eye to anyone she thinks is doing something wrong. I've heard her grumble about my garden before, and don't get me started on the compost bin. It was only a matter of time before she found something else to nitpick. One afternoon, I went to check on the hives and found one jar missing. At first, I thought maybe I'd misplaced it, but then I noticed the telltale signs of someone being in my yard, a slightly open gate and footprints in the grass. The jar that had been taken. It was the one that was just asterisk, ready for my neighbors. Something didn't feel right. Karen had crossed a line, and I knew that this wasn't something I could just let slide. But how could I make her understand the value of respect for nature and my property without creating a bigger mess? I spent the next few days wondering if I was just being paranoid. Maybe I had misplaced the jar. Maybe Karen wasn't involved. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. So I did what anyone with a little too much time on their hands would do. I started watching. I kept an eye on her house, just to see if there were any signs. It wasn't like I could directly accuse her without proof. I wasn't about to make a scene, but Karen had this way of acting like she owned the whole neighborhood. It wasn't the first time she'd done something shady. I overheard her telling a neighbor that she had borrowed a few things from other yards, all in the name of community improvement. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake or an accident. Then one afternoon, it all came together. Karen was outside in her yard, waving at me like everything was normal. But as I was walking by, I saw something that made my stomach drop. There she was, standing near her trash can, wiping honey off her hands. It was unmistakable. The rich, golden color of fresh honey was all over her palms. I couldn't believe it. She had taken it, and now she was acting like nothing had happened. I felt a rush of anger, but more than that, I felt powerless. What could I do? Confront her? Sure, but I knew Karen wouldn't admit to anything. She'd probably deny it and accuse me of being dramatic. And then what? I was stuck, feeling like I had no recourse. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I couldn't let it go any longer. I had to do something, but I couldn't just walk over to Karen's house and demand my honey back. I wasn't about to make it easy for her to turn everything on me. There had to be a way to make her see the consequences of what she'd done without giving her the chance to wiggle out of it. That's when the idea hit me, the bees. I had a feeling that my bees had more to say about this than I did. They worked hard, they were protective of their hive, and there was something about the way Karen had swiped the honey that felt like a challenge to the balance of things. What if I could turn the tables in a way she never expected? So, I started watching her patterns. Karen had this routine where she took her afternoon walks through the neighborhood, always strutting past my house, always with that smug, I'm in charge look. I knew I needed to set up my plan carefully. I couldn't just do it recklessly and risk making the situation worse. I needed to be smart, sneaky, strategic. Over the next few days, I made small adjustments, leaving little clues for Karen to follow. A few subtle signs, a little bit of misdirection. She wouldn't even know what hit her. The suspense was building as I got everything in place. My bees were ready. And just when I thought I might have overthought it, just when I thought I had everything under control, I noticed Karen looking over at my hives with a curious, almost too calculating expression on her face. Something was off. Was she catching on? Was she about to turn the tables on me? I watched from behind the fence, my heart pounding in my chest. Karen was standing by her front gate, staring at my beehives like she was studying them. It was too coincidental to ignore. She hadn't acted this suspicious before. Could she have figured out what I was planning? Or worse, was she already making her move? I tried to stay hidden, but my mind was racing. I couldn't just let her get the upper hand again. But then, just as I was about to make my move, something unexpected happened. Karen turned and walked briskly toward her own backyard, as if she knew exactly what she was doing. I stayed frozen in place, watching her every step. Then I saw it. A new figure emerged from behind the garage, her husband, Jeff. I had never seen him interact much with the neighborhood, but there he was, standing at the gate, handing her something. It wasn't until she turned that I saw what it was. Another jar of my honey. My stomach dropped. Karen wasn't the only one involved. This wasn't just a random theft, it was a full-on conspiracy. Now everything was more complicated. It wasn't just Karen I had to deal with, it was both of them. They had been planning something together, and I had no idea what that endgame was. Were they selling it? Were they trying to cover their tracks? My mind was spinning with all the possibilities. What was their next move? And worse, what if they had already outsmarted me? I needed to act fast, but now I had a bigger problem on my hands. The tension was unbearable. I knew I had to act fast, but I wasn't sure how far this had gone. I couldn't let Karen and Jeff keep taking my honey, especially now that I knew they were working together. The stakes were higher than ever, and if I didn't do something soon, they might get away with it completely. So, that night, I set my plan in motion. I waited until the house was quiet, then snuck out with the one thing that would turn the tide, my bees. I had one of those smaller, portable hives set up in my backyard for emergencies. I carefully positioned it along the fence line, just out of view, but close enough to send a message. With my gloves on, I gently opened it and let a few of the bees buzz out, slowly drifting into the night air. I had a feeling that my bees weren't going to let me down. The next morning, as Karen was strolling down the sidewalk with that same smug look on her face, I watched as she casually glanced over at my hives again. That's when the bees made their move. They swarmed from the hive, creating a thick cloud of buzzing fury. Karen screamed, a real, full-on panic scream, as the bees began circling her. But here's the twist. In her panic, she ran straight into Jeff, who'd been coming out of the house with a jar of honey in hand. He was so startled that he dropped the jar, sending honey splattering across the driveway. The bees didn't need any more encouragement. They dove straight for the honey, and Jeff was the one who got the worst of it, covered in sticky mess as he tried to shield himself. It was chaotic, and I couldn't help but laugh, the tension melting away as I watched Karen and Jeff scramble. But the real surprise came after the chaos settled. Just as I was about to walk over and confront them, I saw a car pull up, one I didn't recognize. A woman stepped out, wearing a suit and holding a clipboard. She walked straight up to Karen and Jeff, looking very official. "Is this the house with the honey theft complaint?" she asked, eyeing me. The woman's badge read, Local Beekeeping Association. Turns out, Karen and Jeff weren't just stealing honey. They were part of a much larger scheme to corner the local market. The woman was there to investigate a number of similar complaints across the neighborhood. As it turned out, I wasn't the only one who'd been swindled. The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. It wasn't just about the honey, it was about something much bigger. And suddenly, I realized that the bees had done more than just save my honey. They had revealed a much darker side to Karen and Jeff's scheme. As the woman from the Beekeeping Association pulled out her phone to take down information, I realized the situation had taken a turn I couldn't have anticipated. Karen and Jeff were caught in the act, and now they had to face the consequences. The association had been investigating local honey thefts for weeks, and it was clear that Karen and Jeff had been